Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this last day of January. I hope everybody's staying safe here. I know that we have winter storm throughout the southeast here. I know I'm out of Nashville. I'm staying safe and laying low. May not work tomorrow. Uh, got a big show. I was going to get into some NBA stuff tonight. Then I just got blown away with a ton of coaching news out of the NFL. Sean Payton's now going to be the Denver Broncos head coach. That really took me by surprise. Thought he may have been out. Maybe I think he's going to sit out this season. Maybe try again next year. We're going to get into that. D'Amico Ryans, almost simultaneously signs with the Houston Texans. We'll get into that. I'll talk about the other coaching jobs available, rank them, discuss them. Billy Packer did not get a chance last week to talk about my thoughts on the late, great Billy Packer, college basketball analyst, died. I want to say he was 82, died last week. I'll get all into all that and more here on Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the country. I'll be back in a minute and 19 seconds here on Sports Scope. Stand by, folks. Hello, Sports Scope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour work week job, I've decided to do the program 5 days a week, 1 hour a night, taking a significant pay cut. So I've started a Patreon page, which is Patreon, Patreon/SportsScope, spelled the same way at the bottom of the screen you see there. For $5 a month, 17 cents a day, you can help support the program. You ask yourself, why Sports Scope? Well, I bring in such big names such as Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator, and I cover the big news in sports that the corporate media will not cover. If you want to contribute more than $5 a month, you can go use the Cash App. The cash tag is Sports Scope, again, spelled the same way. Or you can go to the Zelle app, sportscope@gmail.com. SportsScope has about 5,000 followers and growing. If you want to advertise on the program, you can email me. The word is SportsScope, spelled the same way again, at gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the program. Okay, I'm back live here on All Links. All right, so now Sean Payton goes to Denver. This is a huge pickup here for the Denver Broncos. I don't know if you all noticed this about the Broncos, but they've had 4 head coaches since 2016. 4 head coaches since 2016. Just a boatload of coaches there. And you say, what about 16? Well, that was when Peyton Manning was still there. Remember that was the year that they won the Super Bowl, 2015, 2016. Gary Kubiak was the head coach. Peyton Manning was the quarterback there. Really good defense. Von Miller, those guys. So they've had 4 coaches ever since. Went through a boatload of quarterbacks, including Russell Wilson. Sean Payton now, this news broke down late this afternoon. Sean Payton's going to go there. Nothing on the contract. I'm going to guess that I've heard up to $25 million. I read an article today, $20 to $25 million range a year. So Payton's probably got $100 million contract there. Now I'll say this: this team did trade away Bradley Chubb. The defense still seemed to play well at times. They quit on Nathaniel Hackett a game, that Rams game particularly. They quit on him, and that was when he was fired. He was way over his skis there. But that being said, they're going to have some. He's going to have Russell Wilson, and a lot of people saying, well, Russell Wilson's maybe washed up. Even his biggest supporter, Corey, Colin Cowherd, a West Coast guy, said, there's a good chance Russell Wilson simply may be washed up. He's 34 years old. And, a guy from a writer out of The Athletic mentioned the point that remember when he took over for the Saints and was it 2006 or whatever? He may have been there a year or so. But when he took over with the Saints and got Drew Brees, Drew Brees was considered a broken quarterback as well. Remember, Brees could not even he couldn't pass a physical to play under Nick Saban with Miami. So he ends up going to with Sean Payton in the Saints and has a Hall of Fame career, breaks a lot of passing records. Same thing could be said, perhaps, now he's an older player, and you want to look at, to be frank with everybody, he looked like the old Russell Wilson towards the end of the season. And the team started coming, like something clicked at the very end, the last 2 games of the season that Denver played, something clicked with Wilson and his teammates. There was reports that prior to that he had his own parking space. He was separate from the team. He's dating or he's married to the celebrity pop singer Ciara. And that kind of rubbed some guys the wrong way. Got these huge, he's very flashy guy, kind of reminded me of a Barry Bonds minus Barry Bonds attitude. But then something happened late in the season. The team started playing a lot better. Now, I understand that his cap is a big number there. His cap is a big number, but it will not be next year. It will not be next year. It's a $22 million cap hit now. You look at that next year compared to what the cap is 224 next year. Why is that relevant? Not to sound like a broken record, but I like to hit home on these points. That is 10% of the cap. That is very team friendly. Next year, let's not get crazy here. Next year, that is very team friendly. That is, under 10%. Anything over 12.6. Teams simply don't win Super Bowls. Now, of course, this year, Patrick Mahomes has bucked that trend, but all the way up from since the salary cap era began in 1994, no team. So you look at that, you look at this defense now. You look at this defense, and by the way, next year they're going to have some cap room. Actually, believe it or not, it's not as bad as it seems. Some people look at something and they think everything is just going to be a total disaster. They got about $12 million in cap space. That's not bad. Look at a team like Tennessee. They're $20 million over the cap. So, anywho, going back here to this, I want to say they gave up let me go to my screenshot. I got about 20 different screenshots on multiple different phones here, folks. So just kind of bear with me. Okay, so the Saints gave up a 2023 first round and excuse me. Let me go back up. All right. There were draft picks here. Okay, the New Orleans Saints and Denver Broncos finalized the deal on compensation. This from Ian Rappaport. The Saints get a first rounder and likely a second rounder, but would also get back a pick. Very complex deal. The first rounder is going to be the one that was originally the 49ers. Went from the San Francisco to Miami, then from Miami to Denver, and then Denver back to New Orleans here. So you're giving up a couple picks. Now, remember, the Bucks gave up first round pick for John Gruden. What they get? I got a Super Bowl out of it, right? Bill Belichick was traded from the Jets for first round pick. So it's not out of the question. And quite frankly, those two were successful trades there. So, you want to look at it that way. Again, Russell Wilson going to be about 34 next year. And you're going to have that cap room there. His cap number's not bad. And to mind you, folks, remember, they had players that were injured last year. Sometimes when you're watching it in the regular season, as things are happening in air quote real time, we tend to, myself being included, by the way, we tend to have this notion that everything is going just tidal wave, and really, once you step back, once the season ends, and you step back from the situation, a lot of these situations aren't that bad. They seem dire when they're happening in real time, but when you look at this roster, remember this team also, to note, they lost their left tackle and he's going to be back next year, by the way. I just read he's coming along pretty good. This Garrett Bowles, that's their left tackle. Javonte Williams, very good running back. Lost him early in the season. He's supposed to be back. You look at some of these cornerbacks and pass rushers, Randy Gregory, Patrick Surtain Jr., just real lot. Ronald Darby was hurt last year. Justin Simmons, Pro Bowl level safety. Kareem Jackson. So they've got some players there on that defensive side. Jerry Jeudy, Sutton at wide receiver. So you've got all that now. And again, you've got a guy like Sean Payton, a competent coach here. Now, I understand that they're going against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, two of the better quarterbacks, probably the top two. Some will say number one in Mahomes, and a rising, a very high potential guy. I want to use the rising star, but and Justin Herbert in that division. Not worried about the Raiders, but those are two teams in your division. Now, Sean Payton, you got a guy who's won a Super Bowl, and he's 152-89, 9 seasons, 9-8 playoffs, 1 Super Bowl win, multiple NFC South wins. My guess is they're going to have a lot of money. I think they probably go to the playoffs next year. I don't know how far they're going to go, but they're going to be a heck of a lot better. Okay, and they're going to have some draft capital here. They still got some third-round picks, but they don't really need a lot. Only thing they need was a coach, What did he have here? I want to say 15 seasons. And I wanted to see if they had his NFC South Division wins. But when you play a Sean Payton coach team, and I always judge them by playing Brady and Belichick. They went down to that dome sometimes, Belichick and Brady, and got the complete fire beat out of them. I mean, just totally demolished. And that was when Brady and Belichick were both in their prime and playing really good. So Sean Payton is a very good coach. He gets a little crazy with his substitutions sometimes. I get it. But he's one of those guys. And again, I said this before. If Breeze would have took a little bit less later on in his career, and I know he's got kids and everything, but if it took just a little bit less, I think they probably could have got 2 more Super Bowls out of that run. I really do. I think they were that good on the defensive side. Mickey Loomis, the general manager down there, drafting really well. Now, all this depends on what their general manager, Patton's going to do. But that being said, they have drafted pretty well. A lot of Pro Bowlers potential on the defense. You've got some players on the offense. The offensive line is underrated. They had their left tackle injured. So are they going to the Super Bowl? No. But are they going to come relevant? Yes. And am I curious how much they're going to be paying Sean Payton? Absolutely. My guess is, again, it hasn't been finalized. I'm thinking he's probably going to get $100 million. This is $100 million contract in my opinion. Probably going to be the highest paid coach ever. These are Walmart people. They're not going to mess around. And there's a report. I don't believe it. But there is a report here that DeMeco Ryans, they wanted to go with Ryans over Payton, and Ryans turned them down and took the Houston job. I don't think that's accurate, but I'm going to get to DeMeco Ryans, former Alabama player, former Houston Texan player, did take that Texan job. Okay, but back to Denver here. So though Denver they got 2 third-round picks. One of them they got from Indianapolis in a trade. 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th there. And again, they've got more cap room than I originally thought they had when I first heard about this story. Got about 12 million in cap room. They're going to be okay. They've got the quarterback, they've got the defense, they've got a fair offensive line. Maybe pick up another receiver, something like that. They got some flexibility this year. Now, of course, after this year, things are going to change a little bit. Russell Wilson's number is going to go. It's going to explode. It's going to be close to $45-50 million. Like a lot of players, a lot of teams, quite a few teams actually, are going to be in trouble cap-wise within the next 2 years. But it's an interesting little stat, though. So I'm reading a lot of the reporters around on Twitter here saying just commenting on teams that reporters that cover other teams around the league. For instance, this guy Jamison Hensley, he says he covers the Ravens. He says the Broncos giving up first and second round picks to get Sean Payton. This underscores the value of John Harbaugh. He mentions John Harbaugh's 147-95, 607 winning percentage, 10 playoff appearances, 11-9 in the playoffs, 1 Super Bowl win. Like I said, Peyton, 631 win percentage, 9 playoff appearances, 9-8. Now, remember, Peyton got suspended for the Bounty Gate year, and he still got an impressive record, even after being suspended in the Bounty Gate year. So I also wanted to comment. Now, this guy that covers this other reporter, Rob Dominski, who covers the Green Bay Packers, made a good point about Mike McCarthy. This is what I was talking about yesterday with it's really that they're simply paying Dak Prescott too much money. Check out Mike McCarthy's resume when he was hired with Green Bay. 16 seasons, 155-97. He's got a 614, slightly less winning percentage than Sean Payton. 4 losing seasons, 3 for Payton, 11 playoff appearances. He's 11-10, 1 Super Bowl win, and he is 1-3 in conference championship games. Now, that being said, what's the common factor here? They both have Hall of Fame quarterbacks, right? You have Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees. But, this reporter, he does make a good point, though, that it's not that much difference between McCarthy and Sean Payton. Now, that being said, Aaron Rodgers, as much as I like Drew Brees, probably a better talent than Drew Brees, stronger arm, just an unbelievable. Plus, McCarthy got the coach Brett Favre, too, another Hall of Fame quarterback. So, and quite frankly, in McCarthy's defense, I mean, he's got 2 12-win seasons with the Cowboys and a playoff win. So, but that being said, it seemed like Peyton was getting burned out at the end. He knew that the Saints were busted over the Saints at one point were $100 million over the cap. Okay. They were $100 million over the cap. Sean Payton saying, you know what? Brees is retired. We're $100 million over the cap. I'm stuck with this guy. There's a gadget guy and Taysom Hill. And of course, I just now forgot the guy's name now. Jameis Winston here, quarterback, and we're still 30, 40, 50 million over. 58 years old last year, burned out, took a year off, still had some money left on some years left on his Saints contract there. Went over, worked some with Fox Sports, rejuvenated. He's 59 years old, and he's got a cool, in my opinion, probably $100 million coming his way, plus from Denver to go up and try to win a Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. My guess is they need to try to go all out next year, this coming up season in September. Basically, the season's over. We just got the Super Bowl left. And then we'll see how it plays out. I think he likes the challenge. He's originally from the Chicago area. He don't worry about that snow in Denver. And We'll see how it plays out. Guy's a hot commodity. This could not work out with him, and I still think he would get other jobs because he's got a lot of respect around the league. Cowboys think a lot of him. Bill Parcells, he was a big Parcells guy. Very, very popular around the league. So, of course, it's a home run. Nobody thought this was going to happen. I thought he was holding out for the Charger job. I actually thought that he was going to take another year off and possibly hold out because the Chargers, I mentioned this yesterday, brought in Keelan Moore as offensive coordinator. I thought that he's going to hold out another year. Daughter staying in L.A., help out with Colin Cowherd's show and the Fox Sports, the football pick'em shows and all that. And just maybe get that Charger job working with Justin Herbert, much younger, energetic team. He's still on his rookie contract. That didn't play out. He's getting antsy, wants to get back in it, start putting together game plans. Real excited to see now a year settled in, Russell Wilson with the Denver Broncos, going against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. That's going to be a very competitive division next year. It's actually going to live up to the hype more this coming up year than it was this past year, in my opinion. They had the 5th overall pick, and remember, it went to Seattle in that trade to get Russell Wilson. But mind you, they just changed ownerships there in Denver. They wanted to put their stamp on the team, new ownership, and they did in a big way, folks. Okay, so simultaneously, again, DeMeco Ryans had 4 interviews the week of the Dallas Cowboy game. Defense played great. Got a couple turnovers here. Defense played well last week, only allowing 270 yards here to the Eagles with their both quarterbacks completely injured. Nobody out there to play quarterback. The defense is playing well. Now, Ryans, he's only been a defensive coordinator for 2 years, and they got a flood of Pro Bowlers there up in San Francisco. Nick Bosa, Ken Law, you name it, Armstead, Jimmy Ward, Tre'Davious Ward, the other guy that came over from Kansas City. Just players for days all over the place there with that team. He's been coaching for 5 years, 6 years. And he reminds me, like I said, there was a rumor that Ryans supposedly turned down Denver. But so now the hot commodiness of, and I don't even know if that's a word, I'm just making stuff up here, but I'm getting a sense that he's a hot commodity coaching candidate, and he's only been a coordinator for 2 years. Who does that sound like? A former linebacker named Mike Vrabel, coached at Texans for a little while, former New England Patriot, did not coach under the Patriots. That's a big deal because a lot of the assistants that played for Bill Belichick are awful head coaches. None of them have really worked out other than Bill O'Brien, and then he eventually got fired when they gave him that general manager job. That being said, let's go back to Vrabel. Vrabel, taking assistant jobs for about 5 years, 3-4 years. 2 years, he becomes the coordinator at Houston. The Titans hire him. I have my doubts about him being hired. The guy turns out to be a home run, wins coach of the year last year. Titans winning the division, 1 game away from winning this division this year. A very good home run. This is who DeMeco Ryans, also a linebacker. Okay, he was drafted originally by the Houston Texans out of Alabama. Played there about 5 years. Played at a really high level. Played 9 years in the NFL. Went immediately into coaching after that. Now he's back to the team who originally drafted him. My only issue is, folks, why wouldn't they get an offensive-minded head coach? Usually that's what organizations do. But this is the Houston Texans. They go with who they're, air quote, familiar with rather than what's best for the team. They're going to take a quarterback. Jalen Mills or whatever his name is, he's already fell off. Their quarterback that they got in the 3rd round a few years ago is out of Stanford. Totally fell off. They had the number one pick forever, it seemed like, most of the season. And, of course, they win their last game. Lovie Smith goes for 2 at the end. They got the number 2 pick. Now, they also have Cleveland's first-round pick, which is number 12, the 12th pick, and about $33 million in cap space here. Mel Kiper's got them taking Bryce Young out of Alabama at quarterback. So why wouldn't you just go after an offensive-minded head coach? There's plenty of young guys out there. Pickles calls them techno geeks. I would have went after one of those guys to work with a Bryce young quarterback out of Alabama, help break him in the system. Again, they've also had the 12th pick. You can help out on the offensive line. You could go defense as one of the worst run defenses in the entire NFL, or you can probably go out and get a big name receiver with that 12th pick. But and obviously duly noted, they got another first round pick next year, 24 from Cleveland. So they have some draft capital. I talked about this a few weeks ago. This is why Sean Payton originally even interviewed with Houston, because he was familiar with some of the management there, and one of the owner's son is kind of running things, air quote, and the owner's wife there, the Bob McNair, the owner, he died back in 2018. This team has been a total disaster ever since then. They went through 4 coaches there. Also, this will be their 4th coach. Remember Bill O'Brien? Once they gave him general manager and head coaching duties, whatnot, once they gave him that, whole thing went into to the pits there. Hired David Culley. Felt like that was kind of a guilt trip hire. So they hire this guy, never been a coordinator, like 60-something years old, fires him after 1 year. Then they hire Lovie Smith, his assistant, another defensive-minded head coach. Last year, fired him after 1 year, paying that con. Now they're bringing in another defensive-minded head coach, a very young 38-year-old DeMeco Ryans, and he's a defensive guy. To bring in a new quarterback, that's Houston being Houston, you know. Carlos says Wilkes and Smith got used and the teams did them wrong. No, Wilkes, Steve Wilkes. Okay. Now, Steve Wilkes was the fill-in guy. I think that's who you're talking about with Carolina. Now, the news now is Steve Wilkes is going to be the favorite to go to San Francisco. So he's going to fall into a great job. Sometimes you just got to be patient. The great job is right there for you. Defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, who are I just mentioned him, loaded with defensive players. Loaded. Only thing better, maybe be the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator. You've got just talent for days. So he's going to fall into that. The guy's probably just defensive coordinator material, in my opinion. But I got some more coaching news here and coming up in just a second. So that's what Carlos says. Carlos says, I'm not sure Payton wants the Denver job. Yes, that's official. Only thing left is the finalization of the contract. Adam Schefter and Rappaport, both ESPN, NFL Network, he's going to go to Denver. He's going to Denver. We ain't got the numbers. Like I was saying earlier before you got on, Carlos, $100 million contract there. That's my guess, because it was rumored between 20 and 25 a year as of today. How did Keelan Moore get the Chargers job? Yeah, so Keelan Moore gets fired late Saturday into Sunday, and he's out of work for a cup of coffee, right? 12 hours. Then he gets a better job to work with Justin Herbert in the LA Chargers. So he's going to be their offensive coordinator. So a lot of musical chairs and stuff and all that stuff going around now. Okay? So Rides may be a total disaster. He could be another Mike Vrabel. I'm not going to jump to conclusions. The guy's been really hot, getting a lot of interviews here. We'll see how that plays out. Now, you ask, so now what? Right? Lou Anarumo. Actually, I think I got it right. Lou Anarumo. Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator from Cincinnati. He ain't a good defensive coordinator. He's a great defensive coordinator. He does more or less than just about anybody I've seen currently out there right now. Maybe Vic Fangio, by the way. Vic Fangio, former Denver coordinator. He's now at Miami. So Miami got a good defensive coordinator as well. That news broke today. Lot of stuff is dropping here. So Lou Anarumo, God, I had it right. Then I screwed it up again. Now he's interviewing with Arizona. Now Arizona hasn't allowed a touchdown in the first quarter since week 6, and we were at the AFC Championship game on Sunday. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The guy is a well of a coordinator. Arizona interviewed him, and of course the Colts. Those are the two jobs that are left. You know, Brian Flores, also the Brian Flores, the one that's suing the league for the racial stuff from last year. Former head coach of Miami, who's an assistant with Denver. By the way, Flores is a heck of a defensive coordinator. Really good coordinator. I'm surprised nobody hired him as a coordinator. Maybe he's still holding out for that. But anyways, so both of those guys have interviewed with Arizona. Now, usually a team goes opposite of what they had before, which was Cliff Kingsbury, offensive-minded head coach, techno geek, like Pickles would say. So those two guys seem to be on the radar there with Arizona. Now, only thing I can think of why Anarumo is not the head coach anywhere yet, he must be a bad interview because it ain't his coaching. This guy is a well of a coordinator, and he may just be coordinator material. Now, Flores has a winning record in Miami. He butted heads with his general manager, Chris Grier. That was a lot to be said about that. They couldn't come to an agreement on a lot of stuff, and the owner sided with the general manager. So that's what happened there. So we're going to see how that plays out. Now, here's the thing about Arizona. This news broke over the weekend, guys. Kyler Murray, their quarterback, he might not be back until the middle of the season next year. I didn't realize this, but he also has a torn ACL. We get that. I was thinking, man, torn ACL, well, he should be back by May or June as quick as these players are coming back from ACLs. But now I'm reading he's got a torn meniscus and a torn ACL. Now his cap hit, $24 million, not too bad, but you know they're probably going to have to go after maybe a stopgap guy, probably a Jimmy Garoppolo, somebody like that. If you got this guy not even coming back to the middle of the season, if you get a defensive coordinator, defensive-minded head coach, my guess is I'm not. If you go that route, if you're Arizona, they will probably go to more of a pro-style system. Usually, that's what these guys like to do. That are, your typical defensive-minded head coach. They'll sprinkle in some other stuff. I think you could probably get away with that with Kyler Murray. That was my biggest criticism, folks. That was my biggest criticism of Cliff Kingsbury and that spread he was running. He was on the Kyler Murray was in the shotgun too much. Ran the ball too much out of the shotgun, okay? So I don't know if I would have did that. I really don't know if I would have went that route. Now, I think this guy, Kyler Murray, he can throw over defenses. He's very quick. How quick is he going to be after this injury? Again, his cap number's not bad this year, but it goes up 51, 45, 55 after this 23 season coming up in September, this might not be a great job. This job may go to a guy who's never been a head coach before, like a Lou Anarumo, and maybe Brian Flores turns it down. But if I'm Flores, I'm thinking to myself, I kind of want to lay low for a few years. I stirred up a big hornet's nest with all the lawsuits. I'm on a big popular team right now as an assistant with the Pittsburgh Steelers. When I go on out here to the Arizona desert here, get this team situated defensively. They've still got some pieces, Buda Baker, defensive lineman, a lot of guys we've never heard of, but I watched their Hard Knocks I was finishing that up a few weeks ago. Very solid defense, even when J.J. Watt is just retired, announced his retirement at the end of the season. They've got a fair draft pick there, so they're going to be okay. It's not that bad a job, but my thing is, I didn't know Murray was hurt that bad. I really didn't, and he might not come back. So that could be the only issue. Now, it's a big issue. Don't get me wrong. That's a big issue, and nobody's saying he's not going to play again, but the guy's an undersized quarterback, and he's coming off a serious injury, and he relies heavily on his legs. But again, like I said from the get-go, they were a year too early with extending him. He was in year 4. They could have waited to the 5th-year option. And I guess there was a fear from the ownership that he was going to go play baseball or something like that. So the ownership extends him and Cliff Kingsbury. And now he's having doubts about both. He's fired Cliff Kingsbury, and the owner wants him to rehab in Phoenix area, not in Texas, where he came from, Kyler Murray. So that can be a little dicey, to say the least, out in Arizona. Now, the Colts job. Now, the Colts, $11 million in cap space. Now, Mel Kiper has Indianapolis guys taking Bryce Young. So he's got Bryce Young falling all the way down to 4. Let's go over this again. He's got his first mock draft, Mel Kiper, and he's got the Colts. Remember, Bryce Young at one point was considered the number 1 overall pick at one point. But now he's got the Colts here taking Bryce Young at 4. He's got Jalen Carter, the defensive tackle out of Georgia, national championship team, going first to the Bears if they don't trade down, right? He's got C.J. Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State. Remember, he had a huge game in the playoff game against Georgia, just coming up short. We saw how good that Georgia team is. He's got him going second to the Texans. Another reason I would have took a guy like a Shane Steichen or somebody. That's the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. I would love to put him with the guy like a C.J. Stroud to see if you could emulate that kind of magic that they have with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. Do a C.J. Stroud or even a Bryce Young at the Colts. And that's that now that D'Amico Ryans is with Houston, obviously. Shane Steichen, the 37-year-old who is the offense coordinator with Jalen Hurts, that would be a good fit. That would be a good fit. Not Jeff Saturday. This comedian did a mockery, a parody thing when he was acting like the general manager of the Colts, and he was acting like Jim Irsay. Jim Irsay on Twitter thought that was the funniest thing. I retweeted it out. But anyways, so, the thing about the Colts job, we don't know how much that Jim Irsay's meddling. That's my biggest issue. Okay, so Carlos says Wilkes and Smith got used by teams, Peyton, Denver. Okay, I thought y'all may have said something different. All right, now, so of the 2 jobs that are left, you've got some pieces there at Arizona. You got some hope in the quarterback. But if you want to look back at the Colts job there, you still have a pretty high draft pick. And they have a fair offensive line up there. Jim Irsay overreacted a lot. This team with the Colts, remember folks, they beat the Chiefs this year. The Colts were good at times. They had some, bad moves at quarterback because, Irsay don't have any patience. He wanted to get Carson Wentz. He folded against Jacksonville, get him out of town, and let's get Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's washed up. He's a backup at best right now. But other than him being a little bit off the wall, they still got that 4th pick. They still have cap room themselves. I would go young. And quite frankly, I don't know if they would get a Jim Harbaugh. Why would Jim Harbaugh want to go at this point? I'm still bringing up Jim Harbaugh because supposedly, even after he said he was staying in Michigan, he still interviewed with, I want to say Denver. And it just didn't work out for whatever reason. So, 2 jobs, a lot to be said. Let's see how it plays out, everybody. I got to get a sip of water. That is a mouthful. Got a few other stories. I will get to them tomorrow. Tomorrow, folks, I will get to that. There's a Steph Curry story about him. What does it say? About him not wanting people with low-income housing in his neighborhood. Now, that's a good him being a hypocrite type of story. I told you so type of deal. I'll talk about that. I'll get into some NBA tomorrow. Did not get time. All this news kind of broke all at once here. And, it is what it is. It simply is what it is. Now, other news here. I want to say, by the way, and speaking of quarterbacks, man, Stetson Bennett. Yeah, I saw one mock draft, the quarterback from Georgia, 2 national championships, 25 years old, looks really sharp, looks like the kind of looks like Brock Purdy, right? I could see a team like a 49ers or whoever drafting this guy late and plugging him in. This guy gets a public intox charge here out of Georgia area. So I don't know how it's going to affect his stock. I'm not going to simply poo-poo that. Now, I'll say this. Baker Mayfield got a public intox thing, and he was drafted number 1. That being said, look at Baker Mayfield. He's still not a starting quarterback in this league as of right now. Maybe the Rams do something with him. I don't know. I think this right here pushes him from a 3rd to a 6th or 7th, in my opinion. You just stuff like that. When you're a quarterback, there's a higher standard. There's a higher standard for quarterback. If he's another player, a defensive end or something, it'll be looked at. I remember reading about Adam Pac-Man Jones in the paper. He had a bar fight, and that was poo-pooed when he went to West Virginia. And we saw what Jones could not stay out of trouble as the Titans. I think the guy got suspended for like a whole season. Just one incident after another. Just they spit on a woman. They had the shooting at the strip club where the guy got paralyzed. Just one incident after another. Bowling alley incidents. It was crazy. But and Pickles says Stetson Bennett, the 4th overrated, playing with 14 NFL. Now he may be one of those guys like Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator, who's not really a good offensive coordinator. We've seen that with Buffalo. Ken Dorsey is the quarterback of those 2 national championship playing. They won 1, they lost 1. Miami Hurricane teams from 2001, Pickles, in 2002. I thought, man, maybe this guy's a great quarterback. No, he was playing with all-world players. Andre Johnson, just Winston Justice at left tackle there. Just all those defensive players. We can go on and on and on. Jeremy Shockey, Kevin Winslow Jr., tight end there. Santana Moss, Sonoris Moss's brother. Frank Gore, Willis McGahee. I mean, just player after player. Not to even mention the defense, DJ Williams. Just player after player after player. That's how this Georgia team is. Again, Mel Kiper has got Jalen Carter, his defensive tackle, going number 1 overall. And I know that corner is going to go somewhere, even though he had a bad game against Ohio State. So I think he'll probably drop. He may not get drafted, and that's better for the team. And the guy's 25, and you're getting arrested for something like that. Think about this. He gets arrested for public intox on his draft year. On your draft, that's when you're supposed to be on your best behavior. You're concentrating. You're working with quarterback coaches. You're getting in these little camp things. You're doing everything. You can't get time to be out getting hammered and stuff. You got to get ready for combine. If I was him, I would go to the combine, which is it's usually in February, maybe March this year. Then you got your pro day, and I know those are in March. And then, of course, the draft's at the end of April. So not good. Not good. Okay, now there's another story here, folks. I did not get a chance to talk about Billy Packard. Billy Packard is, every time I think about guys like Billy Packard, I think about CBS, and I think about, March Madness. I think it was 82, died last week. Now, he'd been out for a while. I want to say he'd been retired for about 14 years or so. Now, he may have done some stuff with the Final Four here and there, but he wasn't a regular. And Seth Davis with CBS, he wrote this story here with The Athletic. And he said the first year with Billy Packard, this is really funny. 2004, he goes on and makes this big point about, Packard does, funny story, about St. Joseph. They shouldn't be in. St. Joseph shouldn't be in. He gives all these explanations. So the coach hears this stuff. The St. Joseph coach, this guy, Phil Martelli. I think he's Italian. And from the team's watch party in Philadelphia, he says he was not, this is from The Athletic. So it says he was not pleased. I just wanted to check. So the guy calls in. They're talking to him through satellite. You know how they do it when you see the teams, once they find out they made it to the tournament, you see them the cameras on them. They all start to cheer, and then they interview the coach here. And so this guy's hearing Billy Packard. He's watching him on TV, just dogging him out. Right, this coach here from St. Joseph. And the guy says, quote, "I just want to check, is Billy Packard playing for a team, ? We would like to play against him. He's got a lot to say. We would like to play against him." He says it again, right? And then Seth Davis says, as usual, Billy got the last word in, pointing out the fact that he was a point guard for Wake Forest in 1962 that beat St. Joseph in overtime to get to the 1962 Final Four. So that was one of the better moments in Final Four history. I mean, what a comeback. Also, really trying to say, hey, you know what? Back in 1962, we beat y'all in the Final Four. So if you got anything else to say, I'm here. And that's Billy Packard for you. I like him because, and I know he was controversial and stuff like that. Some people didn't like his style, brutally honest, kind of remind me of Charles Barkley a little bit. I love those guys where they're not fake. You know what they're really thinking, And I was reading this article. The guy, Packard, I mean, some of these names he played with, it makes you think about the hypeness of the Final Four and that music, that dun 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 dun. I mean, he worked with guys like Dick Ingberg, Gary Bender, Brett Musburger, Jim Nance. I mean, and he retired back in 08, called 34 straight championships. I mean, this guy's been around, like my dad will say, since Hitler was a corporal. It even talks about the sport and the tournament went through a lot of changes during that span, spanning from 25. Think about it, it was only 25 teams at one time in the tournament to 64, adding a 3-point line, the shot clock, losing a flood of undergrads to the NBA. I mean, he went through it all. But yeah, Billy Packard was a heck of a character. And again, usually the ones that are brutally honest, where you're going to get what you really, a real authentic opinion from them. And there's some more out there. I think Jimmy Johnson's pretty authentic. He's a he's an NFL guy, but Barkley's authentic. For the most part, I think Shaq is. Shaq's becoming more of an authentic personality. But yeah, guys like Brett Musburger. Musburger got into some trouble out there at the end. He said something about one of the quarterback's girlfriends or whatever. He was a little too much there. But I like these guys. Pickle says he was a treasure. Yeah, John Madden. John Madden could say it in the nicest way. He can say it in the most basic way. But I've always thought that John Madden was brutally honest sometimes. Some people don't like Troy Aikman, but Troy Aikman will tell you the truth. And he's not one of these homers for the cow. He'll call the Cowboys out in a New York minute. That's what I really like about Aikman. He wouldn't pull any punches. I'm surprised that, and maybe Jerry Jones don't talk to Troy Aikman, but like a Billy Packard, these guys will tell you what they really think. Who's the guy who Bill Walton will tell you what he really thinks. I love those guys. Walton one time says, I'm living in New York. I'm watching the game. I'm working on a Sunday. And, I think the Nets or somebody. The Nets are playing somebody, and Chris Webber, I think he was still with the Kings. And he says, somebody needs to tell Chris Webber the game started at noon, okay? And somebody called him in the locker room, and Webber comes out and plays like a house of fire in the second half. That's a Billy Packard type of call out, Don't pull any punches, man. Troy Aikman calls out BS when it's called for. Yeah, he will call it. He will call out stuff. This time last year, he called out Jalen Hurts. He said, "Man, he's missing these shadow." I mean, I wonder if Jalen Hurts went back and watched that game, the playoff game against the Bucs last year, and he probably heard Aikman call him out. Say, "Hey, man, you can't miss those. That's a shadow cross. That is pitch and catch. You got to hit this." He said it so fast. He ain't messing around. And I wonder. I mean, because he really improved. Most improved player in NFL is Jalen Hurts, bar none, in my opinion. You say, well, he got better play. No, but you still have to develop chemistry with those players. And Jalen Hurts is one of those guys, Bill Walton, call out anybody on and off the court. Yeah, Walton. Maybe that's why they took him off the NBA stuff. He still does Arizona games. I don't know if he went to Arizona. Well, he still does like Pac-12. I know he went to UCLA. He's got something going on with Arizona. Wears those tie-dye T-shirts and everything. So anyways, a lot going on in the coaching world, guys. Billy Packard will be missed. When I hear guys like that, I just laugh because, you just love those kind of upfront personalities. And I hope that we don't get in a place now where we're so politically correct, where you cannot criticize anyway. Yeah, Hubie Brown, I think, used to coach for Memphis for a little while. Hubie Brown's very good. There's another old man, died about 4 or 5 years ago. Corey, you'll probably remember him. He worked with ABC and ESPN, bald-headed guy, lived to be about 85 years old, used to do push-ups every day. And I think his name was JB. You guys will probably know I'm talking about. I really liked him. He died about 2 or 3 years ago, and that old man stayed in shape all the way up to the very end. And I know you'll know who I'm talking about, Corey. Yeah. And Walton won 3 championships with UCLA. Those were the glory days. When Billy Packard, he retired in 2008, But my best times watching, uh, favorite times watching college basketball was the 90s into the early 2000s. Shane Battier. I love that 2001 Duke team. Jack Ramsey. Perfect, Corey. Yes. Love Jack Ramsey. Love that old man. Yeah, he would he said it, and you could tell he was in good shape till the end. Dick Vitale, been battling cancer. Love Dick Vitale. Does he get a little too animated sometimes? Yeah, but he's 100% authentic. 100% authentic. Little too much of a cheerleader. Now, Packer would just tell you like it is, and some people didn't like that. But Vitale, very hyped up. Used to say, hyped up for Duke, Kentucky, but, not as good as these other guys. But yeah, Jack Ramsey, really good. Go right into a story. Old school NBA, go to the old school Celtics, Lakers. I mean, just died a few years ago. And the guy was like 80 something years. And I thought, that's how I want to go. Just worked right up to the 80s, man. Love what he did. You could tell. Always, who he kind of reminded me of? The guy, Jack Ramsey, reminded me of Pat Summerall. He still had that calm demeanor about him, even in a really big game, but he kept you engaged. You could tell he knew all the details. Jack Ramsey, and of course, Marv Albert, probably my favorite NBA guy of all time. But those, I don't know, there's something about the NCAA tournament, and there's still something special about it. I think it's because we're getting out of these hard winters and we're coming right into the spring. I mean, you got CBS does a great job, really good job. Turner Sports with covering the tournament. They've always killed it, absolutely destroyed it tournament, because you'll have the tournament and you have these really good personalities. Even a guy like Jim Nantz sometimes get on my nerves, but he's really solid. And then you'll go right into the Masters. And then you got guys like Tiger Woods and now these young, great athletes. And then you're right into the springtime, Corey. You're right into the NBA playoffs right after that. You're just like March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. You got the Selection Sunday. You got all your tournament stuff there. Then that next Thursday, the tournament starts. A lot of fun watching the tournament. Then it gets a little dry. Then it gets pretty good when you get towards the Final Four there. Boom, you got the Masters. Boom, like a week later, got the NBA playoffs. And then you're set all the way up in June. You just boom, wow, pow, pow, pow. And then, like I said, you throw in the U.S. Open in there for golf. And then you turn around and throw in, what's the other? Wimbledon. You get a few good tennis tournaments, but it all starts. If you could just survive to this conference tournaments of college basketball, then you're going to be fine. We're kind of going into a dead period now. I know we got the NBA trade deadline coming up, but it just feels like it's after the Super Bowl, a little bit of a dead period. I know, Pickles, you got your Daytona 500, but once you get that, yeah, there we go. Yeah, Jack Ramsey was his coach at Portland, and Jack Ramsey was like an encyclopedia, man. I love listening to that guy. Hubie Brown, like I said, Marv Albert was my favorite, I guess because Jordan was so good. The ratings were so good back in those 90s games going in with Marv Albert and those guys. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Mark Jackson. Mike Breen's grown on me. He's good for the NBA right now. And, of course, the former Knicks coach, they're good. They're good, But, when you're talking about guys like Marv Albert, he's like the Jordan of the NBA. And, of course, then you got the Kentucky Derby. So it's all right there. Once you start with that tournament, once you make it to that tournament, it's all okay until June. That's why I said, and it gets kind of dry in June. That's why I think the Big Three's such a hit there. The Ice Cube 3-on-3 basketball league, and people laugh at me when I say that, but that is pretty good as well. So will be missed, guys. Billy Packard will be missed, man. 82 years old. So anyways, guys, I'll be back on tomorrow. Who knows what news will be breaking. You guys be careful out there. I know I will be. I know we got a little bit of an ice storm going on around here. So going to have to keep in touch with work. And either way, I'll be preparing for the program, and we'll get into some just some more news and stuff. Definitely NBA tomorrow. Get into some NBA storylines. Trying to see if there's anything that can be done about the trade deadline. I'm curious of what teams are going to do, guys. Pickle says, or Carlos says, Techno Geeks. Yeah. So the Colts, they should hire the Techno Geeks, Carlos. Shane Stitchkin, Pickles. No offense, but that's where I would go and work with a young quarterback, Bryce Young or Will Levis. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same place, here on Sports Scope.